Welcome everyone back to Poppy and Oz. Hope we're all doing really well. If you're new around here, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. It really helps the channel out. Can't thank you enough for the support. It's amazing to see we've hit 5,200. That is way beyond what I thought when I started this. So if you want to do that, you can just hit that button and it really helps the channel out. And you can become a member of the channel if you want. Link is in the description to do that. Really helps the channel out. We've got some new merch coming. So stay tuned for that. Got some, just built my wife an office adjacent to me. So she will be producing that. So stay tuned for an announcement for Mrs. Pond going big style on her own. But we're here to talk about the preview of Carlton versus Sydney in what is a real big game. In the grand scheme of things, especially for the Blues, we've seen a lot about the fixture list coming out. Everyone's saying Carlton have got the easiest run home. There is a bit of work to do before we get to that bye, and it begins with probably the front runners for the title at the moment, the Sydney Swans. 5 games, their last 5 games, all wins. Just got beyond Eagles, but after that, an impressive mauling of Hawthorn, Gold Coast. Very accomplished performance against the Giants, and also put Fremantle to the sword. Carlton, 3 losses, 2 wins. Then wins, though, coming against GWS and Melbourne. Losses, disappointing ones at Adelaide. The Geelong one bites and the Collingwood one really stings. But these are both sides. Carlton with a record of 6-3. Sydney, record of 8-1. And obviously the last time we played was that finals appearance where Carlton came and won from the heavens in what was a glorious year. And let's take a look at these two sides and how they look in the grand scheme of things. So if we look here, this is probably your favourite stat, the scoring breakdown of these two sides. And as you can see, Carlton, the #1 stoppage side, 4 versus the 5th. Very interesting. Carlton have the 2nd most points against from stoppage, whereas the 2nd best defence of stoppage, giving Sydney the 2nd best differential versus Carlton's the 7th. And this is Sydney are probably the perfect side statistically at the moment, well-rounded in all avenues. They're a complete unit. They have got talent to burn. They have got key players in all sorts of areas. They can play ugly. They can play sexy. They ain't going to be overawed with them type of things. And then you look at the turnover. You're looking at the #1 turnover side in the league versus 10th in Carlton. Their ability to create turnover all around the ground, that is key, all around the ground, really showcases that, particularly their ability to put pressure on the midfield. They do like to stand off in the forward half, a bit like Carlton did last week. And you can see against Carlton, the 6th most scored side against turnover, because we'll come on to that forward half pressure. That's what Carlton focus on, versus the least scored against transition. And their ability to really, you've got to understand how Sydney generate their scores. They go inside 50 with purpose, but then they commit mass men to make sure that they get repeat inside 50s, and they really play up high and take you into that deep territory. Do you want to take the team on? Do you want to play? Do you want to go over the top of us? Do you dare do that? Because if it doesn't, it comes back, and you find teams get stagnated and try and overplay the ball, which is something that the Blues are very guilty of. So that's one to watch out for. The differential, obviously Carlton 13th, the best differential turnover side in the league. And then defensive half score generation, Carlton 14th. 3rd best. Their ability to slingshot from the back half of the ground is incredible in itself. The least scored. This is going to be a real test of Carlton's forward half pressure, this, because Carlton focus heavily on their forward half generation and particularly their pressure. They're coming up against the side that is the best. Carlton, 5th most conceded in that back half because they commit so many men in that midfield area, particularly that midfield pressure, giving Carlton the 15th best differential, the 2nd best stoppage differential from them. So these numbers here really do hit home how hard this task is. They are very good at the things Carlton are looking to beat them at. Up next, the pressure acts. And as you can see, Carlton 11th and 10th. This is something that has really stagnated, particularly with Fogarty out. He's a real metronome. And it's also showing a culture shift for Carlton, because these numbers should show you that they're not miles away from the best in the league, but there is certain areas, and it's interesting. If we did these numbers from the last two, Carlton would even rank even better in these key areas. This is a Carlton trying to find their game style. There is a lot of 2023 in this, not by results and not saying it's doom and gloom, but the Blues trying to find that happy balance. And you can see here that pressure acts, the pressure numbers are there. It's more the execution. The third, though, this is a big worry here for me. Carlton play a style, and this shows you the styles. The third most pressure acts against versus the 7. Carlton play a game style that does induce pressure on. People say Carlton can't handle pressure. That's actually counterintuitive. They are a very good pressure handling side. Their system, though, allows you to play a lot of pressure. You have to. And they face that where Sydney do get them abilities to fling it out, get uncontested, and make it a little bit easier. And you can see the differential. Carlton, the third worst, 11th best for Sydney. The tackles are real interesting. Carlton have had a real sling deduction here. And that's why you had them 2 losses, particularly against Collingwood and Geelong. That midfield pressure wasn't there, and it's really affected them when we rank this in the last 5 versus the 6th. Most tackles against Carlton playing with overusing the ball in the midfield, really inviting that pressure, giving them the worst differential versus the 3rd, and tackles inside 50. This is a real interesting number because the 2 losses, particularly, this really showcased this. We talked about the pressure acts are good because Carlton are the #1 pressure rate inside across the season. That's really interesting. That's an accumulation of these numbers and a bit of secret sauce. But this is a real key to Carlton's game. Playing against the best defensive half team, one of the best differential. They don't hemorrhage shots from the back half. Carlton have got to make sure that their forward half pressure is impeccable here. Because if they get a notch on this, that is trouble because they can match Carlton in the midfield. Carlton won't be able to go and do what they do often, and that's try and get some stoppage domination, which means that you commit men forward to try and stop that, and then Carlton catch you on the unawares. It's going to be a real interesting little battle here because something has to go very right for Carlton to make Sydney commit because Sydney play a very balanced game style. This is where there is numbers of hope for the Blues. As you can see, the 9th best mark inside 50 versus the 12th. This is, again, the way that Sydney enter 50. They're not focused on creating one-outs because of their forwards. No offence to them. Logan McDonald's a very good forward, and so is that. But they're better small forwards than medium and them small forwards. So they're looking to bring that ball to ground and do it. That is interesting because Carlton are the highest spoiling side in the league. They're looking to do the same, and it hasn't quite worked out on Carlton's defensive half pressure acts because partly the personnel and partly how Carlton use it. So this is a really interesting battle here, particularly in the arcs, because Sydney are going to play Carlton's favourable system. They are going to bring the ball to ground. So this is where Carlton's pressure in the defensive half has got to be good. And you can see 2nd best goals per inside 50 versus the 3rd. And it's 2 different methodologies, as you can see. And it's a big difference with Carlton really try and make it a forced entry versus Sydney make it a more methodical entry. You can see the dream is Carlton hit it inside 50, bang, it's marked. Where Sydney, they're not looking that way. They're looking to create that pressure first and foremost and bring their smalls into the game, particularly their medium size, your Will Haywoods and players like that. That's what they're looking for, them dummy leads and trying to get them one out. 26.9% of goals inside 50 Carlton are the 2nd easiest side to score against inside 50. Again, them overlap runs, they really do cause chaos. And if Carlton don't have the overlap runs in offense, they don't have the protection out the back. Sydney moving a very methodical rate. It's robotic, the best in the league. And scores per inside 50 Carlton, 8th versus 11th. Again, this is a real chaotic inside 50. It's been very good the last 2 weeks, but again, that's still part of the DNA. That's why we look at these last 5. And the 6th easiest side to score against versus the 7th. This is a real interesting battle because playing that spoil in the forward line is the same as playing the spoil in the back line. It's high risk. It works well because if it works, you catch players out. Players are out of position. If it doesn't, they've committed so many men in them areas. So it's a very interesting battle that it's going to be really who makes the mistake first in the arc. And then defensive resistance. The #1 rebound 50 rate side, they are very penetrating. And this is a number that was flipped last year. All of Carlton's improvements, this is an area that has really, really taken a knock. And they've definitely put a focus on bringing the ball to ground and trying to play it, which makes sense when you look at the ammunition. We've been crying out facade to be used. The issue is Saad's not there. And the most natural replacement for Saad is Alex Chincotta with his pace, right? Because it's built for foot run. The problem is it's Nick Newman because he's the most responsible and the most reliable. So Carlton are really finding an interim here, a real conduit trying to work it out. Where you look at Sydney, they've got the focus of that playing with Florent and Blakely to just get that ball out there by foot. And that's where Carlton have got to be bolder. And now McGovern's back, we see that increase from last week. It's got to get better, though. They've got to be a bit more bold. And this is going to be really the happy medium. Can Carlton be aggressive when they need to be? Intercept marks. This is a real interesting one because they like to hit the hot zone in that lurky area. They're the most intercept mark side against Sydney, where Carlton are the 13th. Now, this is a real interesting little avenue because Carlton deployed some tactical genius last week that not many people have talked about. They put Ollie Hollands on the opposite wing than he usually does. They played him against Ed Landon, and they allowed that trap to happen because they knew it was going to be attacked. Goodwin would have rubbed his hands together at the start of that game. And the reason is they had McGovern and they had Chincotta lurking in that hole. Chincotta to mop up the ground ball, McGovern to take it. This is going to happen again. I want to see Goulden versus Hollands. Now, people will say he gets battered. Good, because the more he gets battered and the more he gets beaten on the outside, his skill set is putting that pressure. And that's what he did with Ed Landon. Made Ed Landon kick it early when he wasn't prepped. And when he wasn't prepped, that was intercept marks for McGovern and co. And there you are, Carlton, the third best, the third lowest ratio of losing versus the 10th one-on-one. That's what Carlton want to do. Early entries means there's going to be natural one-on-ones, and Carlton will win the game on that medium. This is going to be a really tough game. This is going to be a really tough game and a real tough game for our system and our personnel. But a game that Carlton have put the hard yakka in. We've seen slight progression in these areas all year. If they get it right, they can win this game. I'm going into this game with a lot of confidence. You are playing a side that is humming at the moment. They have very little weaknesses. As we've seen, there's a couple of key areas there, but it requires Carlton to be at their best. I am really itching for this game because this is the ultimate test. This is the ultimate noise silencer. Can't wait to see it at the SCG. Smaller ground. Boys go out there, play industrious, play attacking, because that's the way you get the job done against Horse's machine. Can't wait for this one. Peace, love, and light. Pom out.
I see her rolling up over black Cadillac, high heel boots and a sexy body full of tats. Baby's bad.